Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the weekly show where we talk about nerd news that has happened in the past week. Brought to you by us, the folks at Nerd Caliber. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber, first person shooter as a cosplay photographer on Facebook, Burley underscore adopter on Twitter and a couple of other places, mostly as a tech journalist. And joining me tonight is the colorfully backgrounded. I don't think you can verbify
I'm,
that word.
I'm
Anyway,
very grounded.
or the wonderfully grounded. There we go. Lewis, if you would.
Well, as always, I'm always glad to be back here on the stream with you and our other comrades when they're available to join in. We got some great topics here today, and we're looking forward to having some wonderful conversation about these topics. And if you in the chat are joining in, by all means, it's a live show, so we do monitor the chat, and we like to have a conversation with you as well. So chime in if you feel you have an opinion or something like that, and we'll do our best to get to it. But as for my introduction, this is Luis Correa, Crash the Stampede on Twitch. If you want to come check out some of my streams that I've done, Phasmophobia being the most recent game, wild. But um, I am an associate producer with Nerd Caliber. I do a little bit of writing on the side for Nerd Caliber and some other things. And that's my repertoire. By all means, check it all out if you want to learn more.
Awesome. And an incredibly talented photographer as well. Um, on the chat already, Funtime Freddy XD, welcome to the show. We're over on YouTube. Let's see, on Twitch, we've already got Sword and the Stoners. Welcome back. I still am concerned about your name, but that's okay. Um,
I love it. I think it's a great name.
it's a great name. I just don't want you killing any stoners. I mean, they're not harming anybody. Um, and if you have any opinions on any of the stuff we're talking about, feel free to weigh in. We love to hear them. We love to get the feedback on what our opinions are about what's going on, or just the general news that's out there. It won't be a terribly long show tonight. It is. We've got a bunch of good topics, but there are also not a ton of them, which is okay by me. The last 3 or 4 weeks were insane with E3 and then the pre E3 stuff, and anyway.
Yeah, we even us we got to get a little break every once in a while.
Exactly, which is why we're going to start with the worst story we have so we can get it out of the way and get a break.
Yay!
This is the logo for Supernova, a international scale, pretty popular comic gaming and general pop culture con in Australia. And the reason I'm using the logo is because the story is about something that I really don't want to put photos up on. Um, there was a vendor at the most recent, this past weekend, Supernova convention called Celtic Panzer, who got booted out of the con because they were selling items, clothing, and so on with Nazi symbolism uh, and general fascist statements, symbolism, and so on. Which is good that they booted them out. It's bad that it took them more than a day to do it after the first initial reports of people actually sending photos of their booth, which one they shouldn't need to. Whoever's in charge of the floor planning and vendor management kind of should have walked the floor and seen the booth. Um, but the criticism here, and it's one that absolutely they deserve, is they were slow, and why were they even allowed to be there in the first place? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. With the article that we both reviewed, like they make mention of the person who runs the show, apparently donating some money to some anti-trans programs, and then on top of that, like this exhibitor has been there 2 years, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
Two
so,
years,
so
they've
the,
2 years
the
running.
previous
Yeah,
2 years that they actually had it, nobody had anything in 2020, of course, but they were there 2018
right.
and 2019.
Right. So the excuse of like this is the first time that we've heard about it. I'm gonna go on a limb and say that like no one is waited to 2021 to say something or to notice that this exhibitor, and I mean like the con goers. I don't mean like the staff. Like con goers would have noticed this a long time ago. Like they're hyper vigilant about these kind of things. So it must have been reported. Maybe not in excess like this year, but it probably did get reported, and maybe it just got like ignored or brushed aside, or it was just a report, just kind of like just sitting there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, I mean, playing devil's advocate, um, the Kotaku article that we both read stated clearly, and this was a good thing as an editor. This is the proper way to address it. They have no indication whatsoever about whether or not in the previous 2 years that they were at Supernova, they were selling any of this product. Nobody, they've seen no reports about it, and there are no photographs that they were able to find. Um, that being said, did these people get radicalized into fascists over the course of the pandemic? Maybe, but it's much more likely that they were selling this stuff for the last couple of years they were there, and just Supernova either never got reports, which seems highly unlikely, or ignored them. So
yeah, and like I said earlier when we were talking privately, it's like that's the name you registered in the last 2 years. There's no way you got radicalized after you registered that name 2 years ago. Like it's just
yeah, I mean it's a World War II German tank, Panzer.
yeah,
And granted, there's an anime, Girls und Panzer, which is about you know
yeah,
girls fighting
and
in tanks, and there are all kinds of tanks. One of them happens to be a Panzer, but
yeah, and if I recall correctly, the name itself, or at least some variation of the name, is used by groups, groups of the that don't like my skin tone.
yes, yeah. Well, then I mean, yeah, any reference to any sort of um, Nazi technology, symbolism, or anything generally is going to wind up being used by you know nationalists, essentially racists,
Yeah,
nationalists, whatever other term you want to call them.
yeah. It's just like if you're using that name for that long, I highly doubt you got radicalized like on Monday. You
Right,
know, no
right.
one's like, man, I really like history this much, and then on Monday they're like, man, I really like Panzer tanks, and then on Friday they're like, you know what? I also hate black people.
Surprise! I just discovered. I didn't know this
Yeah,
about myself. It's a revelation. I got to so watching cons respond to problematic vendors in a good way is very satisfying. And there was a con here in the Northeast, and this was much lower scale than obviously fascists. But there was somebody, a vendor, who was selling bootleg DVDs, VHS, even clearly bootleg products. Um,
wow, I remember that. That was like 10 years ago. I
yeah,
feel.
that was no, not quite 10, because that would have been 2011, and that was the first time I went to that con. It was like 2015 or 16. Um,
Yeah,
but anyway, so they get these reports by the end of the very first day, which was a half day. The next day, I'm setting up, and I was set up as a photographer like 2 booths away. And suddenly I was like, what's that great big gaping spot there next to you? Charity group that was right next to me. And there was, oh yeah, those guys got booted out overnight. I'm like, yes.
yeah. Yeah, I had a very similar story at a convention I attended in Pennsylvania a lifetime ago. There was a vendor there who was selling like not only like highly illegal stuff, but he was being like really inappropriate. Like he had kimonos and stuff, and when a young lady would like ask to try the kimono on, he got a little too handsy with helping them, and like he was gone within like 2 hours of it being reported.
That's
Like they shut him down, and he was out.
for 2011. That's awesome. That's way before the cosplay is not consent. Movement started growing. That's good on that con, whoever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Supernova or any con, anybody who's running a con, check your vendors, please, for God's sakes. They send in the application. If they get them, if they send you the money, you just go okay. You know, you don't do any research to find out what these people are selling. That's just, yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Barry Chan, welcome to the show, and dab back at you. I'm assuming that's a dab emoji. I'm not. It's either that or you're pointing to get out. I think it's a
No,
dab emoji.
don't overthink it. It's a dab.
But anyway, yeah. So Supernova and all cons, stop being stupid. Do your research.
Yeah. On to better topics.
On to better topics. A much better topic. That is Rachel Zegler in the yet to be released West Side Story. Um, and the news is that on the strength of that performance, pretty much alone, because that's really the only thing Rachel Zegler has done, she has been named as the Snow White in the upcoming live action Snow White coming from Disney. Um,
Hell
and
yep.
good on her. You know, that's to land a role like that off the strength of one performance. That's impressive.
Yeah, yeah. That's incredible, man. I'm looking forward to it, and I don't say that a lot about these like live action things.
Yeah, I'm with you. I haven't have I seen any of them? Cruella, which isn't really a an adaptation. It's a
I saw Aladdin, and I mean I recommend it. It wasn't terrible. Like if you go in not with the mentality that a live action movie has to mimic the animated movie like exactly, then you know it's a fun movie.
yeah. Um, and if you are that kind of person, oh, Luminous, welcome to the show. I recall a booth with wild animals for photos, and I believe they were ejected. Yes, that was. So the reason they were rejected is that they did not have a license to be handlers for exotic animals in New Hampshire. They were not from New Hampshire, and they did have that license in their home state. And that's sort of on them. They weren't, well, I guess they were ejected because the police came.
Hmm.
So that's sort of on them for not understanding what was required for them to be at this con. So it's not quite the same thing, but I do remember that. Yeah, so getting back to your point about people who are okay with minor variations, here's a minor variation that I think you guys out there who are fans of musicals might be okay with. There are going to be new songs written for this by Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, who wrote the music for La La Land, The Greatest Showman, and Dear Evan Hansen. Um, I am not a musical theater person, so
So
I'm gonna go all full Byron on you right now. It's like, oh my god, and that's all I got. So
so if people who know me know that I'm utterly in love with The Greatest Showman, like the music and everything. So yes, I give it a thumbs up. La La Land, not so much. It was kind of phoned in on that one, so we'll see. I didn't see the third one, the third movie.
yeah, Dear Evan Hansen is extremely popular as a stage musical and the movie. So um, yeah, I got to assume that this is a huge win for Disney and possibly a very very smart move on their part. Um, and I don't think you can find somebody who looks, at least in this shot, more like Snow White. I mean, just
Yeah,
physically, the casting is perfect. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I should have looked up earlier. I think I have it up on IMDb. It'll tell me when this is coming out. 2022. Um,
it's not too far away.
well, it says in the article, it says production is expected to start in 2022.
All
Mark
right,
Webb is
nice.
directing. Uh,
Why you tickle me like that, and then you just change it?
IMDb says the movie is coming out in 2022. So,
Mm,
who knows?
I don't think that's gonna happen. If the movie if they just casted her now, well, assuming that they just casted her now,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a hell of a schedule.
Yeah, I think that's true. And plus, she is also in the Shazam sequel coming up, Shazam Fury of the Gods, which is filming right now, but won't be out until 2023. So it seems kind of unlikely that Snow White is going to land in 2022.
Yeah,
But it's Disney. They got more money than God and can throw it at anything they want. So,
blasphemy.
hey, you're going to get blasphemy with me. That's just the way it goes. So, Our next bit of casting news is both casting news and the news of a new series. That is Brian Tyree Henry and Kate Mara, obviously, if you're familiar with these two actors. The news is they have been cast as the leads in a new short or limited series coming to FX and FX on Hulu called Class of '09. And the reason it's on here is because it's a science fiction near future. I don't know if dystopia is the right word. So they both play FBI agents who are working in a near future in the United States where the criminal justice system has been, as it says here, transformed significantly by artificial intelligence.
Mm.
And I really like that idea. That's the kind of socially smart near future science fiction that I really like.
It's like Minority Report with minors.
Yeah,
The emphasis on minors.
yeah. Minority Report, where it wasn't all white people. Um,
Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
DC. I mean, come on. This is DC. It was set in DC. Now, granted, DC at that point had the Enclave, and then basically the trash lands around it. And I think it was pretty clear that the Enclave was for white people, even though they never said it. But yeah, anyway, that's a different movie. This is coming out in next year, I think. Doesn't say. But the reason it's called Class of '09 is all of these, the people that are in it, it's a group of agents that they all graduated from Quantico in 2009. And they're reuniting like 3 decades later following the death of a mutual friend. Brian Tyree Henry is like killing it in nerd stuff. It has been for a while, but he's Phaistos in the upcoming Eternals. He was without doubt the best thing about the most recent Godzilla movie, Godzilla versus Kong. His conspiracy theory addled helper was the best acted performance in that entire movie, hands down. And he wasn't given a lot to work with, and he still did a really good job with it. Everything else about it's just garbage.
Yeah.
And of course, the voice of Jefferson Davis in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, with a connection to something that's coming up later on. Hint, hint. I forgot about this. He was Waikiki's brother, Honolulu, the one that's the two brothers that start the movie, where Honolulu was the one that was wounded, and that's why they wind up in Hotel Artemis, to get help from the nurse.
Right.
I completely forgot about that character, frankly, and so yeah, definitely a nerd stalwart. And Kate Mara, we will forgive her for Fanforstic because she's done other stuff. Looking forward to it. I like this kind of science fiction, and it's continuing the quality short limited series stuff that FX is known for, Fosse Verdon and things like that. So
right.
All right, now this is just this dropped, and it's kind of weird, and it's kind of inside baseball, or in this case, inside Disney. Disney Plus, on the strength of Loki, and that is of course an image from Loki with Loki and Mobius, has changed the drop date for all of its upcoming series from Fridays of the week they were supposed to be on to Wednesdays, because apparently Loki has performed so well, and I guess they think that Wednesday is a part of it, that they've made this change. All new movies will continue to premiere on Fridays, according to the article, but like the new Monsters Inc., Monsters at Work, is going from July 2nd to July 7th. There's a bunch of other stuff. Chip and Dale Park Life, which is the only other, kind of nerdy thing on here. July 23rd to July 28th. Turner and Hooch for anybody who is really interested in that.
No.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big note. Most of them look like they're going forward from the Friday to the next Wednesday. Some of them are rolling back just a couple of days, like Loki did.
Yeah. I'm I think it's a good idea, to be honest. I think I understand like a lot of people's argument about, well, it's Friday, the weekend, I got the weekend off and it's time for me. But let's come on, guys, 2021. Let's be real here. A lot of y'all don't got time, regardless of whatever the hell time that the show drops. A lot of you that I see on social media will sit there and complain that Friday is not enough, Saturday is not enough, Monday is not enough. That's why you need a whole week of no spoilers so that you don't get spoiled. But Wednesday seems to be very non-competitive with other shows because other shows tend to drop on Fridays as well, so it doesn't split the viewership that much. And I think like Wednesdays is a pretty good day in the middle of the week to watch a show and like kind of get in there with talking with your friends about like aspects of it without having it spoiled. Having the whole weekend, y'all think too much. Y'all get drunk and y'all think too damn much.
So I realize I missed a couple of chats here from Sword and the Stoners. Aladdin was fantastic. Lion King was super whack. Um,
Where
I think a lot of people are agree with both of those. Can they bring back Chris Hemsworth for Snow White? Uh,
probably not.
I wouldn't think so because I mean that's a different franchise.
Yeah, that's
Um,
Snow White and the Huntsman, right? If I
right,
recall
and
and all that. Yeah.
different studios. I mean that was not a Disney production, I don't think. Um, but now you got me curious about that, so I am going to look it up. I think that was made by somebody other than Disney because Snow White.
Might have been Sony, right? Maybe.
Yeah, Snow White has got to be in the public domain at this point. Well, I mean, maybe Disney loves to try to get their hands on public domain stuff and keep it in their
Loki.
ownership. Production companies, Universal.
Bleh.
So yeah. Um, so yeah. So Sword and the Stoners, that was not a Disney product. So I mean, they may bring him over. They certainly have him under contract, but I wouldn't bet on it. And
Yeah.
wasn't he in Atlanta, the FX series? Brian Tyree Henry, yes. Actually, currently is probably best known for being in Atlanta, with Donald Glover, who, come on, make it back into the MCU. Oh, we want you to be the Prowler, because it's implied that you're the Prowler.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if he'd be the first actor to be in Star Wars and MCU. I'm not
Star
sure. I
Wars and
can't.
MCU? I don't know. Well, it depends. If he winds up in, yes, he would. But if it doesn't
Yeah.
happen until Oscar Isaac is in Moon Knight, then no, he would be the first. I think the first.
I think, yeah.
Oh no,
No,
he's already been in
100%.
an MCU, or well, technically a Sony Marvel, because he was in Spider-Man. Um,
And well, it's not 100% MCU, so
right, it's a Sony Marvel. Spider-Man is in the MCU, but the other stuff yeah, I don't know. It's confusing. It's very confusing. Lumina says, I like the Wednesday dates, release dates. There was too much coming out on Fridays. So I think, and this is just a wild guess on my part, that people really do have things they do, even if it's not like partying Friday night. They have things they do on weekends that prevent them from getting to a new show that's dropped within, say, 24 hours. The show, this week's episode will be out here on the East Coast 3 a.m. And so, if somebody has to go to work, that day like normal and can't see it until 7, whatever at night, there's probably a better chance that they can watch it that night as opposed to like a Friday night.
yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
you
that's why
come
they're doing
home.
it.
Yeah, you come home from work, assuming that you work something to 5 or something to 6, whatever, it doesn't really matter. You get home in the evening, you make some dinner, you pop on some Loki, you good to go, you caught up with everybody else. Where up on Friday, assuming that you had the weekends off, you're dead ass tired when you get home on Friday. And then Saturday, Sunday, because of capitalism, you're spending that trying to catch up on bills, chores, and all this other stuff that you can't get done the earlier part of the week because you're slaving away at your wage slave job.
Oh, what a wonderful way to put it, but accurate. Um, All right, yeah. So just apparently that's going to be their strategy going forward, and it from as far as I can tell, it has not affected what would be my big concern is spoilers. I haven't seen any more spoilers or less, for the last two episodes of Loki. So,
I agree. I agree, man. I agree. Social discipline is winning somehow. I don't know.
or maybe just it's the trolls that watch on the weekends, or a Friday, and they can't on Wednesday. I don't think that's the case, but all right, moving on to our next topic. Our next topic, well, since somebody just recently brought up Spider-Man and Spider-Man related Sony characters, the news is that the upcoming Silk series, based on the Spider-Man adjacent character Silk, has landed apparently a showrunner. This is one of those deadlines. The website deadline.com, their reporters have inside sources that say blah, blah, blah. But Tom and Speziali, maybe is his name,
Hmm.
who was an executive producer on Watchmen, has signed a deal with Amazon Studios, and part of that deal will be he will be the showrunner for the upcoming live action Silk series, which will be made by Sony, but will wind up on Amazon. So it's Amazon Prime Video. Apparently that has not been confirmed. They reached out to both Sony and Amazon execs, and they didn't say anything. But we reported on the fact that this series was happening because I had to look it up to see whether or not we had done this before back in late September.
Right. I recall. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sony, listen to me and do me a favor. Stop with the goddamn green blue filter on all your fucking movies.
Yeah, I would really think that would be horrible if they did that with Silk, because that is not the tone of Silk's story at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like she's a vibrant character. Like we don't need the goddamn green filter, Sony. Like I don't know if you in debt to somebody that created that filter, like it's a mafia thing, and you have to use the green blue filter. But please, I want to see skin tones. I want to see bright colors. I don't want to see dystopian green blue.
So yeah, Speziali co-created Ash versus the Evil Dead, was an executive producer on The Leftovers, Reaper, and Dead Like Me.
All right, good. That's a good. I'll give it to them. That's a good rounding of work there.
Yep.
You know, Ash versus the Evil Dead was great.
And according to this, the writer and executive producer of the adaptation is Lauren Moon, who was a writer on the Netflix series Atypical, which I liked quite a bit. I have a number of neurodivergent friends who weren't crazy about the way they portrayed the humor inherent in some of the situations that neurodivergent people find themselves in.
Hmm.
Um, they thought it was edging a little bit too close to exploitation. Um, uh, and I can't argue that because I'm not in that situation. So, um,
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where it's really hard to toe the line exactly in those areas.
right. And if it's viewed by people who are in fact neurodivergent as potentially exploitative, so it is, because one
Yeah,
person sees it that way, and that means it is to that person. Um, that said, it was very dramatic and very funny, and wonderful casting. So, yeah. Um, so I am bully on Lauren Moon as well. So it's got some good people behind it. They have not yet cast the lead, and I hear it's going to Scarlett Johansson. No,
why?
that's sorry.
Why?
No.
I quit. Expect my resignation in an hour.
I will not accept it. Um, anyway, so that series is coming up. We'll look forward to giving you more news about when they've cast Cindy. Right?
So,
Hmm?
Cindy Moon, yes. So,
Cindy Moon. Yes.
yeah.
Um,
You just said Cindy, so and you were just talking about the writers. I'm just like, where is it going
Who?
with
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Well, actually,
Who's
Cindy
casting
Moon,
the
which is kind of
writer?
funny because the writer is Lauren Moon.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so look at when they cast Cindy and anybody else, and whether or not there's actually going to be Sony Spider-Man involvement, because there kind of really has to be. I mean, they can change the backstory about how Silk, got her powers and so on, but you know,
I mean, Sony, man, you're doing all right with Spider-Man right now because you got some of that MCU influence in there. So just sit on your goddamn pile of money like Smag and stop trying to like do other shit. Just chill out, man.
yeah, we'll have to
No
see how
green, no
Mobius and
green blue filters,
yeah, uh,
except for Mobius. I'm cool with Mobius having a green blue filter
right.
because he's basically the hot topic vampire of the MCU. So
And the less clear it is to see Jared Leto, the better.
yeah,
Um,
he's gonna be method. He's gonna suck more blood off of people.
or actually eat bats on set. Um, anyway, moving on to our next piece of news, and this is actually pretty cool. They are apparently making an animated series based on Final Fantasy IX. Um, I have not played this game, but based on what I've read and seen from trailers and images and so on, this is described as the cute one. And the
Mhm.
character designs are very kind of chibi esque, childlike big heads and so on. But it's typical Final Fantasy. It's a sprawling adventure quest kind of save the world story. Um, it has two very popular cosplay characters as the leads. I'm gonna screw up the one in green with the gun. I think it's Zidane because they always pronounce the
I
E
think it
as an
was
A.
I think it was like Zidane
So it is
or
Zidane. All right.
yeah, I
I
think
knew
it
I was
was
gonna say I'm
pronounced
gonna go.
Zidane.
I'm gonna go fancy and I'm gonna screw it up.
Yeah.
But it's tough to screw up. The one in yellow, Garnet, is Garnet. So
Yeah.
you're gonna tell me it's pronounced Garnet. So.
Gourmet. Like Garnish. How about that?
But yeah, those two characters are pretty popular as cosplay, so I am familiar with those, and the wizard, of course. Um,
Vivi.
so it is obviously backed by Square Enix. Um, Cyber Group Studios is making it, and that's about all that they have here in this article.
If I recall, I thought they were still optioning this. Like it wasn't completely locked in yet. They were optioning it to the studio
Oh
maybe or
yeah, so
something
they
like
haven't
that.
picked up a distribution, so we don't know if
Yeah.
it's going to wind up on Netflix or Amazon or where. But in this article, the CEO of Cyber Group said that it was going to. The goal is to begin production by the end of 2021 or beginning of 2022, and so if
Nice.
it's fully animated, 2023 at the earliest.
Yeah, yeah. Like Final Fantasy IX was really it's one of those games, to be perfectly honest, not to go on a tangent or anything. When I was younger, I did not like Final Fantasy IX. And as I got older, it was more of an aesthetic thing for me. Like I wasn't a fan of the chibi head thing. So like, but looking at it from this perspective as an older Lewis as opposed to a younger Lewis, it's a story that I would love to see as a show because it was a beautiful, beautiful, like sad, good, hopeful story.
Yeah. That's what I gather from what I've read about it, and that's also the same opinion. Anybody who knows me knows me. I generally hate the chipification of just about anything. But I have also mellowed in that. I think one of my absolute favorite series of the last couple of years has been Isekai Quartet, which is literally taking isekai characters from a whole bunch of very popular isekai anime series, turning them into little Nendroid or chibi characters, and you know having them transported into a school situation, and it's very funny.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And that comparison you made is actually really good, like the Mandroid kind of look,
yep.
because I like that look over like the Funko head look.
Yes, because it's a little less hugely exaggerated.
Yeah.
Um, Luminous, digging deep as Luminous does. Tom Speziale also wrote for Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I'm in. I would never have imagined on any of our shows that we would get a Parker Lewis can't lose reference. Um,
Uh, I agree. I never would have imagined there was somebody older than Rodney.
I don't think that's the case. I think Luminous is younger than I am. But
He
yeah,
too speaks cuneiform.
Sword and the Stoners. Wouldn't it make more sense for Loki to come out on Thursday? There is your rim shot.
You're
Enjoy it.
gonna. I quit.
And we've lost Lewis because of it. And I wonder why they didn't just continue the Spirits Within, besides that it was a complete failure. Well, that probably answers your own question. Two, I, I'm guessing they're going to keep something like the animation style of the original game for this animated series. And Spirits
Spirits.
Within was, for its time, was amazingly realistic CG.
Yeah, and to be fair to be very fair to that movie, because it didn't do well out here, but it also was largely made for a Japanese audience, and their movies, their animated movies, tend to be wildly different than ours. Like we're a get to the point kind of thing, and they kind of like drag things out. Look at any Resident Evil movie, animated movie, if you don't know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
because it's literally a point where in all those movies, if Rodney and I are two characters, and I run into Rodney in an American version, it'd be like, Rodney, this is what's happening right now. We got to go deal with it. And in the Japanese versions, Rodney, something's happening, and I know I have 20 minutes talking to you right now about this dialogue, but I'm not going to explain anything. We got to go.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of that in Japanese animation in general, and certainly animated movies. Yeah, but yeah, maybe for some reason that's considered an acceptable trope in Japan. Guess it kind of has to be.
Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe it's
but
a
anyway,
pensive thing.
yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's pretty cool. Um, Depending upon again how well they portray the story, as Lewis said, that is a pretty impactful story. Um, and I'm bullish on Japanese animated things right now. Anyway, even this is going to be a series, not a movie, but because I just watched Mugen Train, and you had to throw out an entire box of tissues. So um, anyway, moving on. Speaking of casting and for movies, that is of course the amazing Elijah Wood. And the news is that Elijah Wood and Julia Davis, who I know nothing about, British comic actress, have been cast in the upcoming Toxic Avenger movie with Peter Dinklage. We've already mentioned, and we've talked about Peter Dinklage being cast for this, and Kevin Bacon, who I don't recall talking about. So that's kind of a surprise to me. But in this article, it's posited as something that's already been out there. So either we missed it, or it wasn't ever out there before. Um, and apparently the first site to report this. So this is a Deadline, and Deadline wouldn't report it unless they have verified it with their own inside sources. Even though it was reported initially in one of those sites where we don't ever consider it news that's worth reporting on because they're so bad and wrong often, Illuminerdi. And in that site, they reported that Elijah Wood would be playing the villain, but apparently Deadline sources says that has already been decided to be Kevin Bacon. So Elijah Wood and Kevin Bacon and Peter Dinklage in a reboot of Troma's Toxic Avenger. I mean, you just said reboot of Toxic Avenger, and I was in anyway. But boy, am I in!
I vaguely recall this like movie when I was a child, and I remember hating it. So, like maybe it was just like ugly ass dude like came around the time that I was watching Ninja Turtles, and Ninja Turtles were more aesthetically pleasing than the guy that looks like a giant freaking fungus with a tutu on. But
Yeah,
maybe a
Toxic
reboot
Avenger
will do
is
me better.
never. It is not made for and should never be watched by a child.
Yeah. Bro, I literally I can remember this to the day, probably from the trauma that it was Toxic Avengers that I watched, followed by Nukem High, which was an equally terrible sci-fi movie that was disgusting, and a child should never have had to watch.
I agree 100%. Now that you're older, you should definitely watch Rock and Roll High School. It's also a trauma production um, featuring the Ramones. So, um,
Oh yeah, no, I think I actually did see Rock and Roll High School, where the what are the those two teenage boys that had the same name. What's their name?
oh, yeah, now you got me.
Yeah,
They were in,
Luminous. This is your wheelhouse, man. Jump in.
yeah, the Coreys,
Yeah, yeah.
Corey Haim and
Well,
Corey
they
Feldman.
were both in it, right?
I don't,
Or one of them was in it.
I don't think so. This was they would have been infants, I think, because this was the early
Yeah.
'80s.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different, because I know there was a Rock and Roll High that I saw that had one of them in it,
Yeah,
and it was like a really another weird ass movie.
yeah. Um, Maybe they were in it. Maybe I just don't remember. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely Luminous. Clean us up here on this one. Kawane Santos, oi, back at you. How are you doing? Welcome to the show. Um, so yeah, Sword and the Stoners remaking Toxic Avenger. Why the movies were garbage. You know, money. I'm sure is really why. But no, it's for a lot of people it is considered a cult classic, and yes, they were garbage, but they were classic garbage, entertaining garbage, um, and I count myself as one of those people. You know, trauma. There's a lot of trauma movies I don't like, but you know, when it comes to really over the top cheese from the '80s, tough to beat trauma. Um, that's my theory. You know, and money being my other theory. Of course, you know, this would be, we know we're going to get the dollars from people like me who are going to go, oh my God, it's a Toxic Avengers movie. I'm going to go see it. And then Dinklage in it, maybe people will go, oh my God, the Game of Thrones guy's in it. I'm going to go see it. So,
So, funny thing, I actually did a quick Google search. I was wrong, but I'm also semantically right, because the movie I saw was a sequel to the one you were talking about.
oh, okay.
It's called Rock and Roll High School Forever, and they had Corey Feldman in it.
Cool. Um, I don't think I've ever even heard of that one, much less seen it. Anyway, so yeah, there's that Toxic Avenger coming out in. I'm sure we have this here. It doesn't say in here, and I'm not going to take the time to go look it up on IMDb, but I imagine it's 2022. The next topic, our next two topics are about trailers, and the first one just dropped a couple hours ago, and that is the newest trailer for the Suicide Squad. And while we're going to be talking about the trailer and our reactions to it, the drop was one of the weirdest things. Yes. All right. I would, an aside, Sword and the Stoners. I'm hoping for a remake of Cabin Boy. Then, 100%. It'd be really tough to get somebody as good and weird as Chris. I can't remember his name. Writer for the Letterman Show and just all around bizarre comic. But yeah, I would watch a remake of Cabin Boy in an instant. But anyway, Suicide Squad trailer, it dropped as an ad on YouTube, you know, in a front-loading ad on YouTube for other things at first, before they eventually released it as a trailer with I can't remember who's introducing it. Oh, Courtney Jai, or Jai Courtney. Um, and why they did that, I have no idea. I mean, that was sort of a joke release or something. You could initially only see it if you happened to land on a YouTube video that had this queued up as its, you know, pre-video ad, and that you didn't skip. So weird release scheme. But anyway, that
Yeah,
aside,
it
oh,
was
go
kind
ahead.
of fun though.
Well, yeah, it is kind of fun, and it's certainly better than I think J.J. Abrams' relentless, endless stream of social media and website AR stuff for every movie he makes. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I don't necessarily mind AR stuff as long as it's not like excessive amount. Like I don't want to be leaping through the Himalayas to find your damn trailer. Like, just,
Yeah, or
you
I
know,
also really hate it if it has story vital information only on that AR piece of social media or internet.
yeah, yeah.
That
That's
screw that. No,
yeah,
forget that. If it's not in your movie, it didn't happen. But anyway, this trailer is not a whole lot different than things we've seen before, except the one thing that I take out of this is, as I said in the first Suicide Squad movie, Viola Davis's Amanda Waller is the scariest villain in the DC cinematic universe, hands down. That woman, wow. Now, there's a scene where she confronts Bloodshot, very tense and dramatic scene, and it is just cements my opinion from the first movie that you know Amanda Waller in general, as has always been the case in the animated movies, but Viola Davis's Amanda Waller,
she is so phenomenal, man.
yeah,
Perfect pick.
yep, perfect pick. Um, Idris Elba is killing it in a really uh, in this you get to see sort of a more broadly emotional role,
Yeah.
and it's really cool to see him do that. And it's
Af-
nice to know that's
After
in there instead of just sort of the you know lip service that was paid to some of the more emotional stuff in the first one.
after this trailer, I am not watching any more trailers from Suicide Squad because like they're starting to dip into that giving away things that I want to experience.
Yep.
And like I already like I would have loved. I know it's not possible, but I would have loved to find out Starro by watching the movie.
Yeah.
I know it's not possible. Obviously, it's just it would have leaked somewhere. But in a perfect crash world, I would have loved to not know that Starro was in it, so I can be like, when I see it, And I don't want to know more. I feel like we're starting to know too much already
Yeah.
about this. So, but the trailer itself was rocking, man. I loved it. It was great. I love that little bit with John Cena's character,
Oh,
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. And just seeing that little nugget is like I'm looking forward to the spin-off with him because if that you know he's like that one person in every friend group that literally can't understand a joke. He's like Drax basically.
That's a good comparison. He is. Yeah, Sword and the Stoners, Chris Elliott, of course. Thank you. Thank you very much. Luminous, I love the Trauma trailers. They are very campy and funny. I've never seen Rock and Roll High School Forever. Neither have I, as I mentioned earlier. Um, so the other thing, I guess this is kind of really Bloodsport's trailer. Um, we suddenly find out that there might be something growing between Bloodsport and Ratcatcher 2. They definitely have a couple of interpersonal moments in this thing,
Yeah,
um, and that looks cool. I like the idea that they're developing that, um, and then just Weasel, it's just so good.
Weasel's gonna do something clutch. He's either gonna die like doing something clutch or he's gonna get blown up doing something clutch.
Yeah, and I have to,
You know?
so we know that people are going to die in this. That James Gunn has already said that, and there's been plenty of speculation articles, and I'm not going to speculate here, uh, but almost anybody they put in this trailer who has a speaking part in the trailer pops up a death flag. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
so they're going to kill half of them? I mean, or they all put up these death flags, so you're not going to know who is the one that I've got this to live for. No, you don't. because James Gunn
Yeah,
says you
yeah.
don't.
As long as they don't die like in the first movie, like the first guy, because that was just a character that
Yeah, Slipknot.
the yeah, that was like the worst possible like um, First Nation guy. You make him a rapist, and it was just terrible
Yeah.
all around. Like it's just terrible, man. Don't you gotta James Gunn do me good, man. Do me good.
Oh, he will. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident anyway. Um, yeah. So go if you want to. If you don't want to have more reveals spoiled, and they don't give away anything particularly. Well, that's not true. You actually do find a little bit more about the mission and how it ties into the villain. So I guess they do kind of reveal stuff. So, but if you don't mind that, it's a fun trailer to watch. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Um,
Agreed.
our last trailer and our last topic on the show, the trailer for season 2 of Picard, the Paramount Plus series, dropped, and right out of the gate, as they've mentioned, we all know it was coming anyway. We get to see the return of Q. Um, if you're a fan of Star Trek: The Next Generation, John Delancey's character Q was one of the best recurring characters when they needed to come up with some sort of really out there story and plot. Q was the person, the thing, the universe. Yes, all of those to go to, and having Q coming back into the story is one, it's a great big wet kiss to us fans, but two, it enables them to do what apparently, and they're not giving away any of this, but it's in the trailer pretty clearly that this is a time travel story. Um, and I'm very much looking forward to that to see where they go, whether they're doing alternate, universe type time travel or
I hope not.
except that anytime they've ever done that in Next Generation, I loved it. That was some of my favorite stuff. The one where all the enterprises came together at that one nexus point in a battle.
Yeah.
Where
See,
they're
that was cool, but like the different timeline mirror world stuff, like it gets overused now. Now
well,
I
yeah,
and like I
and it is a very strong part, or was a very strong part of Discovery. So
yeah.
both the first 2 seasons, season 3 not so much, but the first 2 seasons for sure.
Yeah, and DS9 did it too, and it was all
Mm,
right for the few episodes that it was about, especially when they like did like 2 episodes and then like another episode like 2 seasons later that kind of wrapped that all up. Like I don't mind wrapping it up, but it's becoming a lot.
yeah,
I don't mind Q popping up and doing time hijinks in the main timeline.
yeah. As long as we don't call it Sacred Timeline. Luminous Q, Heart React, or Star Eyes. Yes, agreed. Um, and John Delancey. So I was lucky enough to be one of the photographers shooting one of his panels at Rhode Island Comic Con many years ago. And he really is genuinely a nice guy and an amazingly talented crowd um, worker. He knows how to play a crowd properly, not in a bad way. Um,
Yeah,
I would say as skillfully as John Barrowman without the problems of John Barrowman.
the ding dong flapping in the wind.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, I became a big fan of Delancey, other than Q, once I saw him at Rhode Island Comic Con and actually interacted with him, and now I am so glad to see him back, and so glad to see Picard come back for a second season. Season 1 was good. It had some pretty deep drops at points in quality from a writing standpoint, at least as far as I was concerned. But overall, the highs were so good that it leveled out at a decent, really good show. Um, and I'm hoping that those dips in quality just disappear in this particular second season, or if they might be smoothed out by the fact that Q is involved, which allows for some pretty outlandish stuff to happen.
Yeah, agreed.
Because Q can basically do anything. Sword and the Stoners, I wouldn't mind a time travel story that undoes Picard season 1. That season was nonsensical. Well, as you just heard, I sort of agree with you. I think the ending was badly done, frankly. And Sword and the Stoners Q is awesome, though. Luminous, I hope the time travel in Picard season 2 is not just to Discovery. Ooh. I don't think so. Based on the trailer, it didn't seem to indicate that, but that's a good point.
Right.
Will
I think the next
Discovery's
season,
future time be part of this?
maybe. I know they're still doing the time travel story in Discovery.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, as far as I know, Discovery's going to stay in the future because that solves all of their problems with any of the stuff that happened to Discovery being referenced in the original, or not referenced, frankly, in the original series.
yeah.
All of that stuff was buried under deep security, and then the thing that was the agency that was controlling it was mostly destroyed, and the Discovery itself completely disappeared from the timeline. So I guess that's a good way to basically say, yeah, this really happened, but nobody in the original series could possibly know about it, except Spock, who never mentions it. But anyway, so that's it, folks. I'm really looking forward to Picard season 2. I would, as I say, and as Sword and the Stoners points out, like to see it used to fix a few things. But for me, that's mostly fix the ups and downs, and not just the fact that I don't think the whole thing was nonsensical. I think it just didn't end properly. That the writing for the last 2 episodes was weak.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Production continues, confirming its 2022 return. So we'll see it in 2022 at some point. So that's it, folks. That is the show for tonight. That was the news that we had drop on in our laps. Oh my God, how did we make an hour out of those topics?
We like to talk.
Well, yeah, that we do. So thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat. Thank you for all your commentary and your observations. It's always wonderful to see you folks in the chat there. Thank you. And not tomorrow, Thursday, Full Fat Spoiler Chat is going to be about the new Pixar movie, Luca. So I'm looking forward to that. 8 o'clock, if you have seen it, or if you don't mind spoilers, please join us Thursday at 8 o'clock. If you haven't seen it and you hate spoilers, I would suggest you watch something else, of course. Maybe some of our back catalog stuff. Monday is Anime Octane, and I think because Mugen Train dropped, last night on Funimation, I think we're going to be doing Mugen Train. We were originally planning on doing the Netflix anime series Tressé, which we'll still get to, but I'm pretty sure we're going to do Mugen Train because most of our team has seen it already in the theaters. I'm cheap, and COVID. And then, of course, Nerd Week Live next Tuesday. So hopefully we'll see you at some of those shows, folks. Lewis, give us a goodbye.
Well, thanks again for everyone who joined us tonight. It was fantastic dialogue all around. Thank you for the people who joined on Twitch, YouTube, all the other ones. Like, subscribe, hit that notification so you can catch us whenever we do our shows that Rodney just finished mentioning. Don't forget the Patreon. By all means, we have 2 very humble tiers to keep us going and help us do what we love to do in terms of bringing you nerd news and all types of wonderful cosplay things, interviews, and eventually, hopefully, Cape if and when we get to that, which will be future news. So stay tuned for that. But this is Luis Correa, also known as Crash Stampede on Twitch. And thanks once again. Have a fantastic night.
And since he mentioned it, I brought up the slide. I'll just throw out the URL, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Check it out, folks. And we'd love to have your support. One other thing that we would love to have your support on is Paul Karetny, welcome to the show. And sorry, we're wrapping right up. You're literally here to see us say goodbye. But for anybody who is watching this right now or will be watching it after it airs, if you have a Twitch account and you would like to watch any of our live shows, we'd really love to have you do that on Twitch. We're this close to hitting some of the stats that we need to start monetizing Twitch, and one of those is increasing the number of live viewers that we have. So please, folks, if you would, join us on Twitch. If you can't, that's cool. We love to see you on YouTube or Facebook. That's fine. But Twitch is where you could do us the most help. And Paul, I came on late. Yep, sorry about that, man. But check us out next Tuesday or this coming Thursday if you've seen Luca, because we're going to be talking about that on Full Fat Spoiler Chat. I've said that enough times. Thank you all, folks. Our friends out west, please, please make sure you find a way to stay cool and stay safe in that apparently never breaking heat wave.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.